So, my name is Lee. I'm the head of marketing at Everybody Loves Languages. It's our pleasure to invite Paulo Dantas to the webinar today and share his expertise on AI and technology and their impact on learning. Um, Before we get started, I'd like to share a quick agenda of the day so you guys understand what we will do for the hour. First, I'll spend 5 minutes to kind of do the housekeeping and welcome everyone. Um, and maybe some people will join late for a few minutes. And I'll spend about 5 minutes to introduce ELL. Some of you might be not so familiar with ELL's products and what we do. So this will be an opportunity for you to get a brief idea. And then I'll also introduce our brand ambassador program for those who are interested in working more closely with ELL and joining our global teaching community in a more close manner. And there are some rewards and benefits of becoming brand ambassador as well. And then we'll move on to the bread and butter of today's session, which is the keynote by our lovely guest, Paulo Dantas. He will speak for 30 minutes and we'll have a 10 minutes time for Q&A. But while he speaks, feel free to use the chat, type your questions, type your comments, share information about yourself. It's a very open platform. Feel free to use the chat however you want. Just be respectful of people's space and time. That's the only request I have for the audience. In the end, we'll have a 10 minutes closing remark and some special offers for the day. I know some attendees are interested in getting a certificate of attendance. So by the end of the webinar, I will share a link and how to claim your certificate through the link. So make sure you stay to the end to get the certificate of attendance. All right, if you guys have any questions, just feel free to type in the chat. I will be looking at the chat throughout the webinar and find the proper time to answer all your questions. All right, so now I'd like to give the audience a quick introduction of what ELL is. Some of you might be familiar with ELL, but some of you might not. So ELL, we are a e-learning solution provider based in Toronto, Canada. We have a global team. We have a strong presence in Latin America, Asia, and Europe. And we have been developing content for language learning for the past 25 years. Now, our primary products focus on e-learning solutions for institutions. If you work in an institution or you are maybe managing the institution yourself, you probably are familiar with using technology in modern classroom, especially after the pandemic. So EL is a turnkey solution for that scenario. Our mission is to build a multilingual world using the best technology and language learning methodologies. So we're really the sweet spot where we combine technology and content. This chart is an overview of our learning management system. Our LMS has a lot of lovely features, which I will not cover at this short time. But if you're interested, feel free to contact me or we'll share some request demo or share more materials at the end of the webinar and throughout follow-up emails. So you can expect more materials from us. For those who haven't been looking at our website closely, this is a quick overview of all the different courses that we provide. So basically, all of the courses are designed by experts and evolve around CEFR standards. So your students will have a very structured learning journey for both English and many other work languages. All right, and one last exciting update about our products is that we recently partnered with more than 10 Hollywood studios such as Disney, Pixar, and DreamWorks. So our product will use the most hot Hollywood movies, students all love. We have the license and the rights to use these movie content to design courses for your English class. So we already designed a lot of classes with our pedagogical experts. If you're interested, we have more than 1,000 films ready for use. If you're interested, you can click the request demo link in the chat, which my team member Sheldon just shared, and we will share more information about that. It is a very exciting product, a series of products with a lot of great content. All right. So without further ado, I would like to introduce today's keynote speaker, Paulo Dantas. Paulo is a managing partner at Trioca, and he has been involved in language learning teaching for over 20 years as a teacher, as an educator, as a course designer, and material writer, and course book editor. So lot of experience in a variety of aspects for language teaching. In the past few years, Paulo has explored ways in which technology innovation impacts teaching and learning. He has developed apps and platforms and other digital products for language learning and teacher education. Um, so, Paulo, without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to you to share your insights and knowledge about AI and technology, which is something we're all kind of excited about, but also kind of a little scared about.
Thank you very much, Lee. I hope you can all hear me all right. Uh,
Yeah.
Hello from Israel. Hi, Jonathan. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat. So, if you have any remarks or if there is something you want to say, please feel welcome. Oh, we have people from a lot of. Oh, where are you from? Can I ask you to type in the chat? We have people from Israel, have people from Turkey. Just that we have some people from Ecuador. That's very international. Lovely. I'm going to start sharing my screen with you. Hang on a second. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay.
Yeah, we really do have international crowd from I see Colombia, Mexico,
Okay.
California,
Yeah. Can you see
Ecuador.
my screen?
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Just hang on a second because I need to see my own slides. That would be good. Okay, good. Okay, so as we said, I'm a teacher. If you ever ask me what do I do at a party, I'm always going to tell you I'm a teacher. But I've also done a few other things, and most recently, I've been doing quite a lot of consulting projects for a variety of companies in e-learning, right? And we set up Troika some 5 years ago. It's been forever. And we work a lot with publishing and teacher development. And probably one of the most interesting conversations that we have, it has to do with the concept of innovation and what innovation is and what it is not. And I'd like to share with you a couple things, a couple products, as a matter of fact, that I find to be very innovative and it might be puzzling, but if you look at this ad, that's an ad from the 1920s of a vacuum cleaner. Um, and if you go to, I don't know, Best Buy or something like that, you will probably get a vacuum cleaner that doesn't look too different. I mean, it will have added features. Now you can see what your vacuum cleaner is doing on your mobile phone, etc. But in its essence, it's very much the same. It hasn't really changed in the last 120, 130 years, right? And it hasn't really changed because it has remained relevant. So there was a problem that needed solving, and the vacuum cleaner solved that problem, right? So I have a dog and a cat, and I mean, there is a lot of fur involved in the process, and I don't think I could survive without a vacuum cleaner. Um, so it is a very innovative product because it solves a problem and because it has remained relevant with the added features. It still solves that very same problem, right? The same would go for you know a very simple paperclip. As a matter of fact, when they first appeared in the late 19th century, they were so innovative that people would, have newspaper ads for paper clips. I don't think you would find a newspaper ad for a paper clip because it has become such a mundane item, right? You can't even buy just one single paper clip. They come in, in packs. But the problem they solve, it's still a problem. We still have the same problem, and the problem hasn't really changed. So, as a matter of fact, the paperclip you would get today is the very same paperclip that people would be using before World War One. So, in many ways, innovation doesn't have anything to do with technology, right? So, innovation and technology, they can be combined in a variety of ways, and technology can solve a lot of problems through innovative techniques, etc. But they are not exactly the same thing, right? I think the key definition here is that innovation, it has to do with remaining relevant, remaining relevant throughout the time. So you change things so as to essentially remain relevant for the market. And in our industry, you remain relevant to ensure our students' learning, right? We need to meet their goals. We need to meet their expectations. And that has to do with how our students learn. Now, when we talk specifically about language learning, um, people have been studying languages for the past, God knows how many years, 5,000 years or so. But since the 16th century, people have started like actually actively learning languages because of commerce, right? So we have a variety of people here. We have Omar from Iraq. We have Ivan from Colombia. So if Omar and Ivan decide to have a chat, they'll do so in English. So after World War II, there was this boom in language learning, especially English language learning, because English became a lingua franca, right? Um, and with the 50s, and because so many technologies became available, we had the birth of audiolingualism, right? This is a set of materials that I have at home, and I'm from Brazil, and you would go. I think this is from the 90s. You would go to a newsstand and you would buy these from a newsstand, and essentially they would come with a small uh, long play record, and you would listen to the sentences and repeat the sentences, right? And then you would write and do the exercises, and you would post the exercises to a teacher who then would mark those exercises and send it back to us with the corrections. And this was like on an ongoing cycle, and you would get, I think, a couple dozen of those booklets. And they were very cheap, very affordable. Anyone could get them. And a lot of people took advantage of that. A lot of people actually learned the language, perhaps not to a C2 level, but they could manage, they could get by in English by learning English like that. Now, if you fast forward a few years, and I always like to use this example. Are you familiar with this software, Rosetta Stone? Have you ever seen it? It was very popular in the late 90s, right? It was very popular. So people would buy a Rosetta Stone CD-ROM, and they would do a language course, right? And of course, nowadays there is an app for Rosetta Stone, which you can download. But essentially, it began as this CD-ROM company back in the 90s. Now, if you look at this product and this product, although they come in different packaging, it's a, it's still essentially the same product. It's a faster product because here it's self-correcting. And yes, very good point, Rafael. It's the app that destroyed Live Mocha. That's true. Um, but the course itself, the English course itself, is not too different. And I would probably say that it's not too different from this course, from the Duolingo English course, right? So essentially, we have the same content, the same type of content, at least, that's packaged in different ways, but the core hasn't really changed. The functionalities have changed, but what students can do with it has changed. Now, funnily enough, and if you scan this QR code, it will take you to a Forbes magazine article. And uh, Duolingo has now just surpassed over $500 million in valuation, in market valuation. So it's a huge company, right? Whereas Rosetta Stone is, well, it still exists, but it's almost defunct, right? So why is it that Duolingo, although it is doing the same thing as this booklet is doing, has surpassed the this $500 million market value? Well, because it has managed to remain relevant better than other similar initiatives, because it has adapted and adjusted itself to students' expectations, to students' needs, and the user experience is maximized. And that's what our students are looking for. They are looking for interesting experiences in terms of learning. Now, mind you, the fact that it's a nice experience, it doesn't mean that people are learning better. I talk very frequently to teachers from a variety of different places, and very recently, I had a teacher who was attending a workshop I was delivering, and I asked if people used Duolingo. She's like, "Yeah, I've been using Duolingo for over 700 days, every single day for a few minutes a day," and she was learning French. I was like, "Okay, parlez-vous français?" That's right. That's, do you speak French? Which I don't, by the way. And she said, she could get by. I mean, she was kind of like an A2, A1-ish, A2 student of French, although she had been using Duolingo forever. And I was like, okay, well, she can get by, which is fantastic. It has a fantastic user experience, but it doesn't mean that people will go really beyond certain levels, right? Now, because it has remained relevant in the sense of being a nice experience, it's still there and it's worth a lot of money. Now, there are lots of other things that have remained relevant, although they remain virtually unchanged, such as Lego blocks. Lego blocks were first introduced in the 70s. They are still highly popular. They are an amazing tool for learning, but also for having fun. Now, one of the nicest things about Lego is that if you look at it, I mean, the way it is in this big box, it's a blank canvas, right? Uh, the amazing thing about it is that you can do pretty much anything with it because it's nothing. It's just, building blocks, and you can build whatever comes to your mind with it. The fact that it's a blank canvas, it allows for this ongoing construction of something that is always getting to inspire students, to inspire teachers, and to inspire kids to do a variety of other things. So in itself, it's an empty vessel. And because it's an empty vessel, it's much easier to make it so relevant. Um, but what is my point here? My point is that technologies will come and go. They change all the time, and we can't really control that. But what we can control is how our lessons are structured and what our learning objectives are and the experiences we create for our students. And back in the late 80s, there was this very interesting man, a very interesting professor from the US. It's a man called Dr. Ruben Prentedura, and he coined the summer model, which some of you might be familiar with. And he claims that technology has essentially two roles in the classroom. The first role of technology is to enhance learning, right? So if you embrace the use of a certain technology, the learning experience will be enhanced. So it will be better than it was. But essentially, it remains unchanged, right? It's just enhanced, it's better. Now, the second role is the role of transformation. So you reshape the learning experience by using technology. And as you can see, there are four levels there. The first level is the level of substitution. So that happens when you replace an offline or analog function with its digital counterpart. So, for example, let's say that instead of um, making photocopies, you send your students a PDF of that file. It's still the same file, right? It's still the very same thing. Uh, there is this direct substitution, but there is no functional change. What students are doing with it, it's still the same, right? Instead of reading on a piece of paper, they are reading on screen. Uh, the second level is the level of augmentation, in which technology will still be a substitute, but there is a functional improvement here. And now this is one of the key uses of the Google Suite, for example. So, for example, if you consider the use of Google Forms, right? So, or for, as a matter of fact, Duolingo quizzes or Kahoot or a variety of other tools, in which instead of having to mark students' homework, you just send them this online quiz that it's self-markable, right? So students will see their own answers, and the quiz will mark itself. So there is a functional improvement here because I don't have to mark every single quiz by myself. Another use of this augmentation level, it would be instead of photocopying to every single student a sheet, a worksheet, I could just, get a QR code of that worksheet and, putting on the board so that students can scan it and use on their mobile phones or something like that. The learning experience is not really transformed, but it's enhanced, right? It makes my life easier. It helps logistics, or it will help the school save some money. The functionality is better. Now, the magic starts happening at the modification level, which is when we use technology to redesign a certain task. We use technology to reconsider how a task is done. So, for example, when you get two students to work on a Google Docs, and you get them to edit each other work real time when they are working from home, right? That's a very simple use of technology, but very effective. And it's something that you cannot do if it did not exist. So you're doing something that you would not be able, it couldn't be done so easily, right? So the task itself, it is redesigned. Or if you're teaching a language course and you're talking about directions, and you open the course book, and in the course book there is a map to teach the vocabulary for directions, which it's usually like a fake map. It's a map that doesn't, of a place that is nowhere. And instead of actually using that map, you get your students to, get their telephones and open uh, a map app like Waze or Google Maps or whatever, and you get them to actually use their own neighborhood map to ask for and give directions, because that's way more meaningful, right? So you are redesigning the task in a way that it is more meaningful to learning, right? So you will generate further learning. The next level, which is the most beautiful of them all, is the level of redefinition. It is the level in which technology will allow for the creation of tasks that were previously inconceivable. So, for example, when you get your students to work together and record a short documentary about a topic that you were working with in the classroom. So, or when you get students to record voice messages using WhatsApp and send each other those voice messages so that they can give each other feedback. This is very simple but very effective use of technology. Or, and we'll begin talking about Chat GTP very shortly, when you start using Chat GTP to solve simple problems in the classroom, to get students to ask simple questions and get simple responses very quickly. Now, you might notice that I have given a few examples of a variety of tools, but I personally, I never advocate for or against any given tool, because I think that will very much depend on the resources that you have available. We have people who come from a variety of different places, people who have different resources at their disposal. So I don't feel comfortable in recommending this service over that service, especially because that's not relevant. What is relevant is what we want to achieve, and only then find the tasks that will help us and our students achieve what we want to achieve. So pedagogy comes first, learning objectives come first. Only then we consider which tools we are going to need to get to our learning objectives. Because otherwise, we might get to the point of this picture. Um, this picture is a picture that that I found in the website of a company that manufactures uh, interactive whiteboards. Don't get me wrong, I love interactive whiteboards. I think they're an amazing tool. They're just very expensive. I don't know if they're expensive where you live, but here in Brazil, they cost a bit of a fortune. I think they cost pretty much the same as a small car, a small used car at least. So they do require a lot of investment, right? So their use should be maximized. Now, if you look at that picture um, critically, I'm looking upwards because I have my second screen there, and I can see a very happy teacher teaching maths to a student. The first questionable thing is that I don't think anyone should look that happy when doing maths. I personally can't do maths to save my life if I have to. But that aside, what is the teacher doing with the students? Well, I see one student sitting right in rows, and there is that student who's in front of everyone else. And the student seems to be working with a calculating machine, right? With a calculator. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, couldn't he be doing that sitting, just using his telephone or an actual calculating machine from where he was? So is this really the best possible use for an interactive whiteboard that this company can think of to actually use on to get to use it on their brochure? Um, so when I look at it, I said, well, that's such an expensive item of hardware. And when we look at the summer model, it would definitely be at the substitution level. Although that's a very expensive item, its use of technology is barely enhancing students' learning experience. So, what's the problem here? Why is this happening? Well, I think it has a lot to do with the way our classrooms are structured. And when I talk about classrooms, I'm not talking about the physical classrooms. I'm talking about the learning experience. If you look at these four photographs, you will see that they show classrooms over 5 centuries, right? So we have a 500-year span. The first one is 15th, 14th century classroom from in a monastery. Then you have a school in the US in the late 19th century, then a school in the 70s, and then a classroom that you would find in any given fairly privileged school, right? Uh, but if you look at them very closely, you will see that they are not that different. As a matter of fact, it's like you still have the teacher as the center figure. Students are orderly sitting one behind the other. Well, in picture number 4, you at least have students sitting in on opposite sides of the room, but they are still kind of like facing each other. And they have tablets. Fantastic. But the shape and the way things are structured is in such a way that the scenario is not too different. And now, of course, we have this new classroom environment, which happened with the pandemic, which, funnily enough, it does look incredibly similar to the same shape that we've had so far. Um, and what I asked myself is, right, so have our students really not changed over the past 500 years or so? Uh, exactly, Vinny. That's a very good point. There is not a lot of interaction going there, and I think we need to start considering the idea that the classroom is that. I think the way the learning experience should happen, it has nothing to do with what is happening in our classrooms right now. And I want to go to this quote by this amazing Brazilian scientist, Dr. Silvio Meira, is a leading scientist in technology and education. And he says that with the pandemic, we had this huge opportunity that learned that classrooms are no longer effective. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about online or offline lessons. The amount of content that we can fit in 50 minutes or 1 hour or 90 minutes, it doesn't really matter. Uh, the idea that we should go back to the classrooms or to the physical classrooms and to the practices that we've embraced for so long makes very little sense. So we need to consider the idea that education, foundations, methods, processes, and platforms need to be changed because we cannot be looking at the concept of a lesson anymore. Lessons do not make a lot of sense because students are not learning in bullets anymore. We cannot control what students learn. And our role in this is very critical because if we don't consider the fact that our students have changed dramatically and even more so in the past couple of years, uh, things are not going to change. And we'll look at all these tools, all these new technologies, and we'll just be amazed and think that they are going to solve all the problems in the world. When, as a matter of fact, the problem is that the gap, the generational gap, especially between us and our students, is getting bigger and bigger because we are not addressing our students' needs. So fundamentally, as Vandenberg says here, we need to be engaged in the process of change, and this process of change uh, involves us learning new skills, accepting new principles, experimenting with new materials, and incorporating new knowledge, right? Uh, so innovation is not, it's not an event. It's not a single tool. Innovation is a process. And as a process, it's essentially never ending because new technologies will come and go, right? And I want to move forward to a fad that was very popular a few years ago. Some of you must remember Pokemon Go, right? If you ever downloaded or used Pokemon Go, can I ask you to just make a quick comment in the chat, just so that I know that you're here? Um, I think when I was I was working in a company in a school, as a matter of fact, in 2015, 16, um, when Pokemon Go first appeared, and a lot of people said that Pokemon Go would change education altogether, and that it would revolutionize everything, etc., etc. There were some quite serious websites and portals, like Edutopia is quite popular, and they were there. Okay, so Pokemon Go will change education. And then we had lots of other fads come and go. We had the fads of VR goggles. Apparently, they would be used to revolutionize how education would happen and how people would learn better. And then there were the moments of tablets, because tablets would single-handedly change education. And then there were mobile phones that they would revolutionize education again. I mean, if all of those revolutions had actually taken place, I think our classrooms would probably look very different from the classrooms that we've just seen over the past 500 years or so. And I think it has a lot to do with this cycle. This cycle is provided by Gartner. They are uh, IT slash innovation slash education technology consultants, very big firm in the US. And they release a lot of white papers every other year, right? And this curve that we have here is known as the hype cycle, and it shows trends, right? Uh, and it goes like this, pretty much with every single new technology. So someone comes up with a new idea or with a new product or a new tool, and because as humans we are all very I think we're nice people and we like to hope for the best all the time. So we look at that new tool and we fall in love. It's pretty much when you're dating someone, right? So you meet the person for the first time, your expectations, poof, skyrocket. And then eventually you do realize that although you have this very high level of expectation, it doesn't really seem to solve the problems that you have. When you actually get to know what it can do, I mean, there is the potential of that tool, and your problems are here. If the fit is not perfect, then people just drop it. They stop using it. They ignore it, which is what happened with tablets, which is what happened with Pokemon Go, which is what happened with VR goggles, and with a variety of other incredibly popular a few years ago tools. And then we go through this valley of this delusion, right? Until eventually you go and think, well, but wait a moment, maybe this new tool is not going to solve all my problems, but I can find a use for this single, small, isolated problem that I have with my students. So maybe Google Forms is not going to replace teaching altogether, but it can help me mark the homework. It can save me time, right? Uh, and in that sense, it makes my life easier. So I can find a use for that thing. And when I can find that use, it takes me to the path of effective implementation. So that's called the plateau of productivity, according to Gartner. And most technologists go through that cycle. It's inevitable. We just get to that through that process with a lot of things in life, but definitely with technology as well. And when we look at the hype cycle for last year, there were four key themes there. Learning environments are becoming a thing. The idea of working with experience and engagement, of course. The idea that operations and integrations amongst a variety of different platforms need to be optimized. Of course, we all know that. And considering a variety of different business models for education, which, of course, I mean, we are teachers, we don't need to talk about that. But what we want to talk about, it's a little small, but I think you can see there, and I've highlighted there, is that the talk of AI in higher education was already going on at the beginning of 2022, right? So this was published last year, the day before my birthday, as a matter of fact. And as you can see, you're still in the peak of inflated expectations. It's coming down, and this is for higher education. And K through 12 and language teaching is always lagging a little bit behind higher education. So right now, one could confidently say that we are still like really very much in love with the idea of ChatGPT and a variety of other artificial intelligence engines, right? So we had ChatGPT, but Google's coming up with its own version of it. Microsoft just released its own version of it. But as a matter of fact, this has been the idea of AI is not new. And actually, it's not new at all. This is a headline from the New York Times in 2011, uh, in which you had Watson, which is how IBM's artificial intelligence is called, and they invested a hell of money of it. And eventually, Watson won Jeopardy, right? The TV show quiz. Uh, and this was groundbreaking at the time, and that was just over 10 years ago. This was a big moment for computing because you had a machine who could actually talk. There was Watson's voice, and who could, using its huge database, using its very vast, literally vast, because um, Watson was such a big computer that would take a whole floor in IBM's office. Um, it won the quiz. It beat two humans, right? And at the time, it did create a bit of a buzz, but because it was not so usable and it was very much expensive, as a matter of fact, people couldn't just go and decide to use Watson. It never really became a thing. Now, because exactly, Adele, that's about memory and trivia. It's retrieving information. But because we are right now in this moment of inflated expectations, I think we're getting a lot of headlines that are compelling us, that are forcing us to think that tools such as GPT will solve all of our problems. But there are a few quite interesting ideas for us to consider. Um, I think first we should consider uh, the initial response at the beginning of the year, right? So Chat GPT has been commercially available, mind you, and it's a product, and it's not run by a not-for-profit company. It's run by a for-profit company. Um, it has been commercially available for about 3 months. And the initial response was, okay, let's ban it because it was sparking um, ethical concerns, and people were thinking about, okay, this is going to encourage cheating, and maybe we shouldn't be using it at all, etc., etc. And this was the initial response. And then a few weeks later, us teachers started thinking about it again. Okay, but wait a second, we can use it to help our students learn. Maybe if we just help them ask the right questions, and if we prompt it correctly, and if we and then right, we continue this conversation, and then oh, but it could create issues with students actually writing essays that are not their own essays. Well, but how do we use this? Da, da, da. These are not the right questions. Because if we are teaching lessons and if we are asking our students questions that can be answered by an artificial intelligence engine, we are asking them the wrong questions. And this is something that we should be thinking about. First of all, the big problem with Watson, and it's still the problem with ChatGPT, and it's a problem that the most tech companies have not been able to solve, is the fact that, yes, Watson won Jeopardy. But the funny thing is that Watson did not know it had won Jeopardy. It got to the point in which it answered all the questions because the answer to those questions were available in a database. And that's it. It's just a very sophisticated search engine. And the way Chat GPT is structured is that it's a very optimized search engine. But those search engines, they've been around for quite some time. And some of them are very sophisticated. And we have other versions of it. We have Amazon's Alexa, we have Google Assistant, we have a variety of other things. What ChatGPT will do better is that it looks through a bigger database, but it cannot look at it critically. It can only combine information that is available there, but it will not know exactly what it has done, and it cannot assess critically if something is right or wrong. So, in a nutshell, I think we should look at ChatGPT as the calculator in math. So uh, math teachers, they had to deal with this problem in the 50s because a lot of time was devoted to getting students to actually, doing the maths by hand. And this is something that, okay, I can save my time. I don't need to do very complicated maths by hand. What I need to develop is mathematical thinking, is the reasoning behind the equations, not doing the equations themselves, because that's very time consuming. Uh, ChatGPT, as it is right now, it's not really that smart because it doesn't understand the information. It is able to combine the prompts and to analyze language, but it's not able to understand if the information it has provided us is right or wrong. It cannot critically analyze bits of information. So it helps. It does help, but it can't do the job. In a way, the challenge that ChatGPT is posing to us it's not too dissimilar from the challenge that Google posed to teachers in the early 2000s when it first appeared. What it did in the end is it was to help us save a lot of time, a lot of effort in searching. Back in the 90s, if you wanted to search for something, you would go to a library and search. That was it. Then the first search engines came up and it just made our lives easier. And that's not too different from ChatGPT. I'm not saying that we can underestimate it. And there is a technology law that I love personally, which is Roy Amara's law. Roy Amara, he was a futurologist. He worked for the Institute for Future in Technology, passed away a couple of years ago. Um, and when we look at new technologies, this line that we have there, the dotted line, is our level of expectation, right? And the green line is what technology can do. Uh, so for quite some time, we tend to overestimate the impact of technology. So we tend to look at it and then we realize that it cannot solve all the problems that we think it can solve. But over time, we tend to underestimate its impact in the long run. And I think this is a bit of a trap because we cannot look at tools such as ChatGPT and other companies will come up with things which are very much the same. We cannot do that. But we need to understand that, yes, the way our lessons are organized, structured, will change. Our students' expectations will change. And most importantly, the questions we ask our students and the questions we help our students ask, they will be very different. They will have to be very different. And I want to wrap up and move on for questions with this quote by Heraclitus. The idea that nothing really is uh, permanent, but for change, right? So if you've enjoyed this chat, can I just recommend that you, if you want to continue this conversation, you can look Troy up in the on Instagram, and you can send us DMs so that we can continue this discussion. And I'm open for questions if you have any questions. Hi, Romina. Hello from Uruguay. I love Uruguay. It's been forever since I went there. I love Montevideo.
Paulo, lovely, lovely keynote speech. I learned so much from your speech. Um, Thank you for spending the time for doing that, to do that. While the audience might be typing the questions in the chat, I have one from the previous chat while you were speaking. So maybe we can kick off the Q&A session with that one. Um, so Kanan asked, do you think that using too much technology in learning would create a lazy and less smart, quote unquote, generation in the future?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think it depends on our definition of lazy, right? If by lazy, we mean people who try to, find shortcuts to do things, then I think yes. But I think it's just that the problems are different in a variety of ways. I think we try to develop new technologies, new tools because we are lazy, because we want to do things faster, because we want to do things more efficiently. Uh, but I think the bright side of this is that we end up having way more time to do things which might be more meaningful. Um, Irina, can I recommend technology that helps avoid copying or translating? No, I cannot, and I don't think there is such a thing. And as a matter of fact, can I be very honest? My love of language, my love of English at least, it's fairly decent, I like to think. It is not my first language, but every now and then I use Google Translate just to save me time. It's I some I mean Google Translator has become so effective So sometimes if I need to translate a short paragraph and I'm in a rush, I actually use Google Translate and I edit it for of course for clarity, etc. And yes, Patricia, ChatGPT cannot tell verified information from fake news. It cannot, because as I said, it doesn't understand the information it's conveying. So it just looks at the database and moves that bit of information onto text that is well written, right? But it cannot assess the quality of a text. It can assess the quality of the language in a text. But you can write a lot of stupid stuff using beautiful language. Some of the books with the worst bits of information I've read, they are amazingly well written. Uh, and I agree with you, Anna. Trying to find shortcuts could be a sign of creative thinking. So yeah.
That's lovely. So for the audience, do you have any more questions before we wrap up this section here?
I think it's Wikipedia. You can ask questions to Canon. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a more sophisticated Wikipedia. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a very good friend of mine who's an engineer at Google, and she said to us, "Well, the way you look at these new artificial intelligence engines is that they are sexier Googles." In the sense that it will package the way information is presented in a more conversational form, right? So the form changes. And even Google is adapting. Now you can ask Google direct questions, right? If you ask, I mean, what's the temperature? But of course, it will respond to very simple questions. But if you ask a question, it will reply. Uh,
That's right. Um, okay.
okay, so I guess that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for your lovely speech. Let me just wrap up the session with two more things that the audience might be interested in. I'll just share my screen here. So, before I start, Paulo, if the audience wants to reach out to you or contact you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I've just put our Instagram handle in the chat box, so they can reach us out there.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. So before I share, we wrap up this session. I want to share with the audience our brand ambassador program, where we collaborate with active community, uh, active teachers and community leaders like yourself and passionate educators to join us to join the ELL teaching, global teaching community and share your insights and share your um, work, share your achievements with the community. And potentially you can become a speaker like our lovely Paulo. And we have rewards for referring new business to ELL. You can have early access to our new products like the movie products, and we will interact with you on social media to elevate your personal brand and your social influence and give you recognition if we achieve something great together. If you scan the QR code, do a screenshot, we'll send the link also after through email. There's a place on the website where you can join and become a brand ambassador for ELL and grow your professional career with us. Uh, Last but not the least, if you're interested in getting a certificate of attendance, please go to this link. Please share this link in the chat as well You can also do a screenshot and scan this QR code. We'll be happy to provide you a certificate of 10 days and potentially some takeaways from this session as well. All right. Thank you again for joining this webinar, and thank you, Paulo, for attending, for speaking to us and sharing your insights. It was very insightful. I hope everyone had a lovely evening, afternoon, whatever time zone you're in, and see you in the next webinar.